Welcome to this podcast. Is making me thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This episode 117. You know today's guests from Virtual Combat, the Nutty Professor, Nash Bridges, Black Scorpion, and of course, as Jerry's girlfriend Melanie in the Seinfeld season 7 premiere episode, The Engagement. Please welcome Athena Massey. Athena, thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me as your guest.
So, Athena, take us back. This was 27 years ago, September of 95. The Engagement kicked off season 7. You played Jerry's girlfriend, of course, dumped twice, as they say. But give us a little background into how the role came about. And we're always curious about kind of the audition process and how you got the role. Obviously, of the girlfriend, Scoopy the Peas.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm impressed that with all your numbers, it's been 27 years. I didn't realize that. In September, you guys are good. You do your homework. I like that. How did it come about? I remember that was a really super busy year. I had just done Star Trek Voyager, I think Nash Bridges in San Francisco. I was doing a couple of films, and then I was also doing commercials and voiceover. So super busy. So I went. It was an offer. I didn't even audition for that one, and because a lot of the times you'll audition, maybe go back to producers, etc. So this one was an offer to go in as Jerry's love interest, and I was like, for who? And when it said Jerry Seinfeld, I'm like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. Because I was one of the people that got onto the whole Seinfeld series a little late. Everybody was watching it. I think I was still more focused on Friends and whatever other shows were popular at the time. And I was just like, after seeing 1 or 2 episodes, I was like, it didn't really do anything for me until I literally binged, was like, okay, I need more. This is so funny. So I was just really thrilled to be told that I was going in to play one of his love interests, to be a girlfriend. Of course, knowing if you play a girlfriend, you're going to get dumped because he never stays with anyone for too long.
Right. And it's interesting. The way he dumped you was one of the ones that always kind of bothered me because, watching it over again last night, I think eating the peas one at a time is sexy, to be honest with you. I mean, it's surprising that he didn't like that. But all right. So you got the offer without even audition. That's great. We don't hear that very often, actually. And so did you, when you got the set, is that the first time you saw the script or had they sent it to you already?
So they had already definitely they sent it to me ahead of time. It's funny because I wanted to see it. It's probably in my garage somewhere because I used to keep every set of sides that I've ever auditioned for, which of course eventually I had to get rid of all that because it was a lot of paper. But I do keep every television and film script that I've auditioned for, minus a couple that might have gotten lost. But I do keep all that just for sentimental reasons. I'm kind of nostalgic like that. That was the first time for me that I walked on set, and instead of just feeling like, you're going to work, it was like, oh my gosh, that's Kramer. So seeing, the character instead of just a fellow actor, at the craft service table, I literally thought he was going to come sliding in. He'd always slide up to Jerry's door. I was just expecting him to kind of shimmy his way over to the craft service table that way.
Yeah, so that must have been something for you, right? You said you weren't kind of a big fan of the show before you came on, but then you kind of sped up and you caught up. So you were kind of familiar with all the characters. I mean, you mentioned Kramer, but you were obviously you became a fan of the show before you went on, I assume, right?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say I wasn't a big fan of the show, just meaning I hadn't seen as many of the episodes as all of my friends had at the time because everyone was watching it. And I just kind of, like I said, jumped on the boat a little later. So,
yeah.
But you knew, obviously Jerry always had the good-looking girl. Listen, for our money, Athena, best-looking girlfriend Jerry ever had was you.
Oh, thank you.
That's why it was so upsetting that he got rid of you twice. But
I know. Trust me, I wish I could have gotten a lot more screen time, and definitely would have loved to have come back and done more on the show.
So right, so that was season 7. That was Larry David's last year on the show. So it was kind of a big year in that sense. What do you remember? Obviously Larry's gone out to do Curb Your Enthusiasm. What do you remember about him? I know he was the head writer. How involved he was kind of on set.
Well, I didn't get a chance to meet him. So he wasn't on set when I was there filming. So I wish I could have. That would have been great. And I think just everything he's done is brilliant.
Yeah. So it's interesting, like you mentioned, you had the scene with the piece. Is there anything that we didn't see in the final cut that you remember that may have been taped as far as that scene goes, or any other scenes where you may have been with Jerry in a different setting, or maybe there was more dialogue that just didn't make it on? Do you remember if there's anything like that in the show?
Oh, like the famous, all the stuff that ends up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, something like that.
There's a ton of stuff I've done that's ended up on the cutting room floor. You're like, oh God. In this particular one, I wasn't given more dialogue scenes, etc., that just ended up getting edited out. I wish I could have, but at this time, it was really just the amount of screen time that you see, which unfortunately is brief. I would have loved to have had, a lot more easier part.
Of course. I mean, us too. So, I mean, you mentioned you didn't Larry wasn't on set. It sounds like maybe your shooting wasn't all week long, but were the other, what you mentioned, Michael Richards, how about Jason Alexander and Julia? Did they happen to be around when you were there? Did you have any interactions with them at all that you can touch on?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, the squeaky chair. It's like from the 1800s. I kind of like old stuff, old and new. Yes. So I was first in the makeup chair, and I looked over, and when I saw Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I did one of those, like, I felt like a guy, when a guy like walks by, he sees like a hot girl, and he's like, whoa, and he goes, whoa, and does like a second take. I kind of did that with her, where I was like, oh, that's, in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And I went, oh, she's beautiful. So I think they play down her beauty because she's really stunning. She is very beautiful. On the outside and inside. So definitely chatted with her for a little bit in the chair until she got off, went off and to do her stuff. And then again, seeing George. And to me, that's what's funny is I was seeing the characters instead of the actors.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the number one show in America at that point, it's kind of just, I would say that's natural, right? I mean, and it's your first time on the show. Actually, we spoke with another who had less lines than you on that show, Renee Faya, if you remember.
Possible?
Yeah. Is it? Yeah. The Checkmate. She was in the opening scene with Jason Alexander, but she touches on, just how welcoming and everyone from the show was. It just felt like, different from some of the other programs you probably worked on. I'm curious. So, you started your career. I love to hear how kind of career started. Your first job with Doogie Howser, is that right?
Yes, I was a love interest for Doogie Howser. I was the boring girl. So they had me in just very plain, boring clothing and just talking, going on and on and on. It's when he was venturing out into, I guess, online dating, and so got to.
Now we're guessing Neil Patrick Harris didn't really hit on you, did he? In your life?
No, he did not.
Yeah, always.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. I mean, some of those are just iconic shows from the early '90s. It's just great to see. So, how did you kind of kick off into acting? You grew up in California originally. I'm always just curious how you kind of got that acting bug early on in your life.
So I think I got my start when I was about 15, where a friend of mine, I saw these beautiful photos she had done with this photographer, and I went, wow, I want photos like that. So I did a photo shoot with him, and he said, wow, the camera really loves you. I guess photographers say that to all the girls. But I enjoyed being in front of the camera as a model, and went from there. I started doing videos, commercials, and voiceover, and then that led to film and television. So it just kind of, just did a little stepping stone on my way up. And when I went to college, I took one acting class. I thought, well, let me do this, see if I really like this. And I did. So at that point I went, I don't think a degree in acting really means much. I mean, and not to knock the actors that go off to, Harvard and Yale and get these amazing degrees. That's amazing. I didn't have that opportunity. So then I just started studying with all of the best teachers in Los Angeles at the time for scene study, cold reading, improv, all of that.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. I mean, at that point, if like you said, I mean, you can get the same training just outside of going to college and paying for all the other stuff that college makes you do, which I never understood. That's just a side note, though. So we're also we've talked to a lot of guest stars that go on the show, and like O'Hara said, the set's always so welcoming from what we hear, and the other actors and actresses and the crew themselves are so welcoming to the newcomers that are just coming on. Just kind of wondering what it was like. I know you mentioned, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but when O'Hara mentioned this was season 7, so it was kind of it was going to be Larry David's last season. I don't think anyone knew that yet per se, but it was also a season premiere. I don't know if it was taped that way, but could you get a sense? I mean, you had done a bunch of work beforehand, but could you get a sense from walking on the Seinfeld set that it was just different than other sets? I mean, we hear that a lot, that just the way things are run there and just the kind of the vibe and the energy, even afterwards, so, have you gone on things after Seinfeld? If you go back and compare it, I know you did the Larry Sanders Show, which we've heard the good things about that as well with Gary Shandling, but just kind of get a comparison of other sets and other ways you've worked compared to what it's like on the Seinfeld set, for you.
Gosh, every job is so different, and that's part of what I love about this industry is it's always different people, different places, different character, different everything. I know right before I went on set, my agent at the time, he had told me, he said, listen, whenever Jerry's filming in front of a live audience, he's just so focused that if he's not very chatty or not very friendly, don't take it personally. That's just how he is. And I said, okay, thanks. I appreciate the heads up. And when we got to set, we actually weren't in front of a live audience at that point. And he was really cool. He was very down to earth. He was just very much him who you see on screen. It's not like he to me anyway, he didn't seem any different personally as he did with his character, but he was very friendly and was just asking me, how things are going, how I'm liking the industry. And, I was like, well, sometimes I have like a love-hate relationship with this industry. And he's like, well, I really hope today's not going to be one of those hate days. I go, well, that all depends upon you. But he was fun.
That's great to hear.
So, I mean, to me, just working with a comedian like Jerry Seinfeld, an honor.
So yeah, you mentioned you wasn't there. So I guess were you there the whole just one day? Was it how long were you on set? Do you remember? Yeah,
it was just one day because it was just for that particular scene.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, there's mention of me earlier when I shushed him in the movies. When he and George are talking and when they make the pact. But the actual filming of just being in that restaurant, eating our peas, or me eating my peas one at a time.
That episode you mentioned, the pact. I mean, I think that kind of encompasses the whole show. Those two guys getting together. We're not men, And then from that point, yeah, he wants to get back together with you, and then we know what happens with the peas. But I mean, it was season 7, but at the core of the show was literally that episode, right? Just
yes, yeah, because that's
guys who are pretty much children.
Yeah, that's when they're talking about that they break up with girls for these, silly reasons, and they want to do more with their lives. So yeah, and of course, and that's what the irony or the funny part of it is that they go and make the pact. George goes off and proposes, thinking, they're going to be men now and move on, and yeah. And then how funny it is that he's now stuck.
Yeah, I mean, really a memorable show. 30 million people watched it that Thursday night. We'll never forget it. Did things from that point on change for you? Were you more instantly recognizable? I'm just curious, that next day, that next week, that next month, did Seinfeld, open up a lot of doors for you, or, just walking down the street where people are like, hey, there's the we're 1 piece at a time girl, things like that?
There's other shows that people would recognize me from walking down the street. I don't think I've ever had someone say from Seinfeld. Definitely from other shows. Yeah, but what I get more so is, oh my gosh, I saw your episode last night, or my daughter will say like, oh, my dad knows you from such and such, and I'm like, her dad would be my ex-husband, not that. Her friends would say, my dad.
Right.
A blonde moment there.
So is she into the show? If you don't mind me asking, is she a teenager or how old is she?
So I have two daughters. They're both teenagers. I have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old.
Are they getting into? So we're hearing a lot of this from a lot of our guests that have teenage-aged kids, that they're starting to sort of get into it on Netflix and everything. So they are liking Seinfeld.
Yes. So that was kind of the thing memory that I was mentioning. So my daughter was at her boyfriend's house, and when she had mentioned that I had been on Seinfeld, she's like, Mom, his dad looked it up and now we're watching Seinfeld. We're watching your episode. I'm like, okay. Residual watching.
That's always fun though.
Yeah, the residual's still coming in, right? I mean, it's not life changing, but you'll take them.
Hey, you know what? Every penny counts. They all add up. And I just think it's amazing to think that there's work that you've done so many years ago that, while it definitely dwindles down each year, but still there's still checks coming in. That's awesome.
Yeah, you've been a part of so many, I would call them like cultish shows where you mentioned a few, whether, it could be Star Trek, even Young and the Restless to some degree, Seinfeld. Like, people are just like, completely obsessed with those shows. I'm sure there's a few others. But I guess, how would you, just throughout your career working on all these different shows, how do you compare the fandom, if you will? And we'll throw Seinfeld in there, of course, but when you bump into people in the street and they mention, like you said, oh, I just saw your episode last night. Like, I'm just curious how that compares with like Star Trek, etc.
What was the question again? How does the recognition?
I think the crazy fandomness of these kind of these cult-like shows that people are just so into them. You know what I mean? Like, and then they recognize you and put you in that. They think of you as a Seinfeld guest star or a Star Trek. Like, I'm just kind of curious where you see yourself fitting most in throughout your career on all these different shows. You've done comedy, you've done drama, you've done it all.
Yeah, So I kind of see myself fitting in everywhere because, like you just said, I've done comedy, sci-fi, action, psychological thrillers. So, and I've done games. If you're into gaming, that's a whole nother world. But I remember even walking down the street in San Francisco, and I live in Los Angeles. So here I'm in another city, walking in a crosswalk, and as you're passing people, they're just people. You're indifferent, right? And there's Athena Massey. I'm like, huh? I'm in San Francisco. but they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh, hi. They're like, wait, and then turned around and followed me to the corner because they wanted to take a picture. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, I saw you on site. Yeah. I think that one was Nash Bridges.
Those video game things too. Yeah, that is a huge, huge following with that for sure.
Yeah. So I first did a game called Quarterback Attack, which was a football game, and that had Mike Ditka in it.
Ditka, yeah.
Yeah,
and I played a cheerleader, and there's all these football players, and I'm not a big football fan. So I didn't recognize, all the guys were going crazy over all the football players there, and I'm like, who? I'm like, I know who Mike is, but I wasn't sure.
So did you meet Ditka, or is that kind of similar? Like, you just kind of filmed? Yeah.
Yeah, it was briefly. Again, it was brief, and it was hard because the men that were all surrounding him. It was funny. It was kind of like, they're all like fanboys, just going crazy.
Well, yeah, you've worked with a ton of iconic men, like a Ditka, and even Adam West. I'd love to hear a little bit about
Adam West, Frank
Batman himself. Yeah, what was that like?
So that was awesome. So the TV series was called Black Scorpion, and it was kind of a campy female version of Batman. And in that, I play a marine biologist on the lab coat, the glasses, and then I end up turning into my alter ego, Hurricane. And when I had heard that they were trying to get as many of the Batman originals back, like Frank Gorshin and Adam West, ended up working with Soupy Sales too. Not saying he was an original Batman, I don't think he was, but again, very iconic character. He was, back in, I believe it was the 40s, the whole pie in the face was his shtick. But it was awesome. And they did a couple of promos with Adam West for the show. So it's funny. I think when I look back at work that I've done and people I've worked with, I don't think that in the moment I ever understood or kind of grasped like the magnitude of who I was working with and what I've done and how it would really, I think, affect me later. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I look now and now I'm like, now I understand why my agent was always like, you're going to be working with Adam West, take pictures, make sure. I'm like, nah, I don't want to take pictures. You know, you're going to be working with Frank Ocean, take pictures. I'm like, why do you always want me taking pictures with everybody? And now I'm like, damn, he was right. I should have taken more pictures.
No, yeah, Black Scorpion's on Amazon Prime out now, so definitely check that out. It's funny you mentioned she was a marine biologist. That just, it always clicks that that's one of the most famous Seinfeld episodes when George pretends to be a marine biologist. So there's the common thread you guys have.
There you go.
Yeah, great tie in there. And we know, tell us a little bit about Arbonne too. I know that's something you're working on, the website, all the beauty supplies and things like that. Arbonne, is that something you're still associated with?
Yes. So I am super, super passionate about health and wellness. And it's actually thanks to my career in entertainment, because when I started acting, I learned real quickly that it's important for me to take care of my skin, my hair, my nails, just my overall health. So that obviously you just have to be as fit as possible to endure the long, grueling hours that you sometimes have to do. And I'm addicted to knowledge and always learning things. So the combination of knowledge and health and wellness being two of my passions, I'm just always helping for myself. And then I also just always like to help other people look and feel their best, level up their health and wellness. And so they both go hand in hand.
Well, Athena, you are practicing what you preach because you look amazing. And I got to say, 27 years, you must just be eating peas every day, right? Do you eat peas?
I honestly, here's the thing. I drink peas every day.
Really?
A green juice? Like a green juice?
So I drink.
You like a juice?
It's a vegan protein. No, it's Arbonne's vegan protein shakes. So I have one every morning, 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking, just to get your metabolism going. I actually do a coffee. So it's protein with 2 shots of espresso. And
wow. That sounds
my
like a
dessert at the end of the day is also another 2 scoops of protein.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Athena, are you, you mentioned the entertainment industry. Are you working on anything? We'd love to see you back on the big screen if you are.
Oh, thank you. So I'm laying the foundation right now. The biggest role that I've done is I took off a break to have my babies. So I've been full-time single mama, and I have no family here in LA. So I do everything. And like I said, it's to me the biggest and most important role of my life. So now that they're both finally getting up there where they can be independent, not having to, cook so much and travel around or drive everyone. Actually, my little one is finally getting her license in these next couple of weeks. So right now I'm laying the foundation to get back to work. So I have been working with the vocal coach and definitely doing like the new headshots and all that stuff just to get all that out there.
Very cool.
So I believe I've sent links for my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So I keep up to date with all of that. So I'll definitely be posting there as I'm doing things.
That's awesome. And well said. I mean, it takes a lot to just kind of step away from that life and raise children, which is kind of the most important job you'll have in life. So kudos to you.
I originally thought that I would just take a couple of years, thinking, okay, I'll get married, I'll pump out a couple of puppies, I'll get back to work. And, you never know what life's going to throw at you. So, both of my children had special needs. And now, thank God, through lots of help, they've both done amazing. But that turned into a bigger full-time job than I was originally expecting. And, definitely with not having family here, that to me was the most important. So, and then that's why the health and wellness just worked out perfect so that I could do that alongside still being able to be at home and a full-time mama for my babies.
That's awesome. And just truly an inspiring story. I mean, wish there were more like you out there. But Athena, thanks so much for joining us. I mean, like I said, you're one of our favorite Jerry girlfriends of all time, and just thanks for making us laugh throughout all these years on everything you've done.
Thank you. Laughter is the best. That's one of the things that's going to keep you young, healthy, and happy.
Amen.
Thank you, Athena. This was great.
Well,
thanks so much.
So much for your time. Thank you for having me on the show. Yes,
awesome.
Guys, absolutely. Have a great night.
You too. Cheers.
Bye-bye.